After the epic scale and serious themes of Lawrence of Arabia, the Academy went with something a little more silly. Tom Jones was directed by Tony Richardson and stars Albert Finney in the title role. It's a period comedy that completely embraces its own ridiculousness, which makes it one of the strangest films to win Best Picture up to this point. The story follows Tom Jones, a child born out of wedlock to a servant of a wealthy squire. The squire banishes Tom's mother but decides to raise the child as his own. Tom grows up to become a handsome and charming young man who is extremely popular with the ladies. Unfortunately, his romantic adventure gets him into plenty of trouble, particularly when he falls for Sophie Weston, whose father refuses to let them marry because of Tom's illegitimate birth. What follows is essentially a giant screwball comedy, as Tom tries to prove his love for Sophie, while seemingly every woman he meets wants him for herself. This isn't the first or last comedy to win Best Picture, but it's by far the silliest. The humour is so random, exaggerated, and completely strange. A large part of the comedy actually comes from the filmmaking itself. It constantly throws bizarre editing choices at you. The opening scene is presented almost like a silent film, with exaggerated acting and title cards, and then suddenly the sound comes back. They use ridiculous scene transitions out of nowhere. Sometimes they might just speed up the footage like a Benny Hill chase, and other times it's a completely different cinematic style, an absurd situation, or Tom breaking the fourth wall. But unfortunately, I don't find any of this funny. An unfunny comedy is harder to forgive than a bad drama. I love absurdist humour, but I don't think the film commits hard enough to these jokes. It's constantly trying to be outrageous, but most of the time I was just sitting there wondering when I was supposed to laugh. And I didn't particularly like any of the characters either. A great comedy needs likable or at least entertaining characters to carry it, no matter how dumb or how weird the film is. And I never found myself particularly invested in anyone here. There are still a few things worth praising. The costumes and set design are both excellent and give the film a convincing period atmosphere. But beyond that, there just wasn't much here that worked for me. The film won 4 Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director for Tony Richardson, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Original Score. Tom Jones is remembered as one of the more unusual Best Picture winners, particularly for its experimental approach to comedy and filmmaking, but I have to give it just 1.5 stars. At the end of the day, it's just a comedy that didn't make me laugh.